Белянчикова Татьяна, Professor of Global Economy and Global Finance Department. Our experts in this audience are Горинов Евгений, researcher of Economic Policy Institute, Skalkin Vladimir, Professor of Economic Theory Department, Dubova Svetlana, a Professor of Financial Market and Banking Department, Zbigniew Mezhva, Executive Editor of our Review of Business and Economic Studies Journal, and representative of our Real Economy Department, Pashtova Leila, Professor of Corporate Finance Department. So, first of our presenter is Magradze Anna, 4-year student of Financial University.
Good morning, dear colleagues, and I will present today my presentation about the monetary policy of Russia. My research is based on foreign experience, and it is very important to know what other countries did in crisis or in serious situation, and which of instruments they have to control the monetary policy. So the importance of monetary policy is very high for each country, because it is connected not only with all economy, but also with level of well-being of population, and so the feature of monetary policy, of course, is the role of government. In some countries, it plays very big roles, and some countries less. Some countries. Можно это убрать, пожалуйста? Some countries pay attention on foreign investments, but, for example, Japan don't make free exit for foreign investors, because Japan has very strong national policy, and have very strong culture, and acts that control monetary policy in Japan was founded 1 or 2 centuries ago, and I existed today. Mhm. A very big problem for Russian mentality in all economy is that we have many problems for period 20 years, and we expect a gold fish which will solve some problems, but actually we need strong education and strong economists. What I see in exit from this situation, I will say later. It is a comparison of some countries. I have researched the European Union, USA, China, Japan, and of course Russia. We have the high inflation, and of course the goal of central banks is to control inflation, and but Russia has the biggest one, and the biggest one bank rate, and the main the main mistake of the Russian central bank is that in crisis period the central bank increased bank rate that do more difficult for investors and for business activity do all exist. So you can see the dynamic of money supply in Russia. Aggregate M2 is the main aggregate. Each country has its own aggregates, and maybe 2 or 3 or more. And you can see that the big share is as a deposit of population and cash and circulation. So I did regression analysis in Excel program, and you can see all results. So I did regression analysis between share of investments in GDP because I think that investments plays a big role in not only our country but also and so the results was on medium level because investments don't see that M2 don't have a big influence on investments, but also have it, and results of influence was exactly 50 or 70%. I also did the forecast of Russian key interest rate, but it is focused based on mathematical method, and it means that the social or political problems were not mentioned. And I think that the key interest rate 1 or 2 years will be 4 or 6%, because the big amount of commercial banks want it, and we need to develop our banking structure, and it's a main exit of crisis situation in Russia, and the main way of development Russian economy. So below is the dynamic of M2, and I want to mention that other countries have more flexible aggregates, and we need a new instrument of control of money in circulation. So I compare the China's monetization level and the Russian monetization level. Why I did it? I know that in among of scientists are positions that Russia can be can compare with China, but it also isn't right, because we have very low level. I see the future of Russian monetary policy in such factors of identify priority ways and economical partners, increasing the level of population's mind also, and improving of monetary policy and regulation in banking sector, because the government don't have good relations with the central bank that can allow them to make a good monetary structure. So we also need to internal sources of financing and the foreign partners. Thank you for your attention, and if you have any questions, you can ask me.
So, what do we have now with our connection? Vietnamese colleague, can you speak to us? Did you already improve? So, do you have any questions to our reporter? Леша, исправьте, пожалуйста. Unfortunately, we can't hear you, and in such case, unfortunately, we can't organize our discussion orally, and my suggestion is, can you write down your question to our reporter? In our SMS sector. Леш, какая у них проблема? Что? Алло. Вот это вот надо включить здесь. Okay, while you are writing down your questions, we... Dear colleague, can you regulate your phone system, because we have a phone sound, and it prevents us of proper discussion. Thank you, please. Tatiana Viktorovna, do you have any question to our reporter? Не слышно. Нет, у нас выстроено было.
Меня слышно?
Да.
I think I will have questions, but a bit later, after hearing to all the reports.
Леша, что такое? Да. Продолжайте, пожалуйста.
Well, I think today we'll talk about the differences between Russia and Vietnam and other countries in the sphere of monetary policy. And I think it would be better if we hear to the presentations of our Vietnamese colleagues first, and then we'll discuss the difference and the possibility of implementation of experience of the countries. Excuse me. У меня больше нет микрофонов. А я его убрала, все. Нету. А сейчас слышно меня? Эх, вот сейчас я попробую что-нибудь с этим сделать, но я просто не знаю, куда его деть. А так слышно? Так не лучше? Ну вот. А так? Двойное. Так, сейчас. Все равно. Давайте. В ленте сейчас? Я просто вас не вижу. У вас камера отключена. и не слышу с экрана. Мне на что нужно нажать, чтобы подключиться? Вот я звука от вас не слышу совсем.
Да, сейчас. Вы нас слышите?
Да, вы оттуда. А вы меня?
Да.
Ага, все тогда, да? Спасибо.
Так, ну что говорит?
У нее был вопрос какой-то.
Татьяна Викторовна, repeat your question, please.
No, I don't have questions. I'd like to listen to the presentations of our Vietnamese colleagues first. I think we have to discuss the differences between the two countries in the sphere of monetary policy and the possibility of implementation of the experience in this sphere of the two countries. Right? I can't see.
Да, говорите.
So, in such case, I give the right to ask question to Владимир Скалкин. Если он не подключен, так можно говорить? Леша?
Нет, сейчас включаем. Okay. Do you hear me?
Yeah.
Yes? Okay, thank you. Thank you, Anna, for a great presentation because you have covered a lot of material, raised a whole load of questions that could be addressed from different points, and it could be a very long discussion devoted to your relatively short presentation. So actually, so many topics, and they're different ones and viewed from different angles. But the main issue of your topic is to improvement of Russian monetary policy and also study of feasibilities and possibilities how you could implement the best practices in global monetary policies to improve Russian monetary policy and probably fiscal and the general macroeconomic policy and maybe even the way how politics work. So many things. So with regard to that, my first question is, out of long list of wishes that could be applied in Russian macroeconomic policy, political situation, fiscal policy, monetary policy, which one would you specifically allocate to the function of central bank? Because, for example, I read your proposals, patriotism, financial education, level of population mind, and all these things probably may lie outside the responsibilities of central bank in Russia, even though Russian central bank is a meager regulator, which is quite unique in global environment because no Bank of England, no Federal Reserve has so many responsibilities as Russian central bank does. So generally, would you propose to increase meager regulatory role of Russian central bank, or probably these proposals may be allocated between different sectors of Russian regulatory bodies? Please, thank you.
So I also think that the central bank can't operate officially without the control of our government because our economy is not advanced like USA, and we can allow to central bank to be only one and mega regulator, because the policy of government in monetary sphere and the wishes of government of our president in monetary sphere differs from the policy of central bank, and example of it is period of 2014 and 2015 when the central bank increased interest rate, but the president thirdly asked don't do it. So I think we need reconstruction of status of central bank, and in the future maybe we will have a strong monetary policy. Any questions?
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Katerina. I have plenty of questions for you. So first of all, concerning your comments of the mega regulator and the things that central bank should not be independent because our country is not developed enough. The dependence itself on any other state body exhibits the low development of the country itself. You should have read some papers on the independence of central banks, how they developed the independence. It is a single signal of the development of the country when a central bank is an independent body. And when you say that Putin was against the interest rate, it is a big, big question of who has actually made the decision of increasing the key rate. Right now, I assume that our central bank is not that independent enough to be compatible to the central banks of other countries. As for the other questions, can we take a look at your presentation, please? Yes, please. So, just my general perception of your presentation, you may have covered a lot of topics, but they are absolutely unstructured and they are not connected with each other. No conclusion. So let me see the slide with the golden fish. Yeah. Could you please comment on what you consider the problem number 2, official bank rate, UK discount, USA? How does it correlate with the name of the slide, please? So you probably remember this slide. Could you please probably connection? Could you please comment on the second point?
Yes. I looked at a dictionary, and absolutely different, and where are the terms of UK and USA only.
What does it have to do with problems, the status quo problems in Russian?
Yes, we.
The name, okay, the name is different. Have you compared the essence of this problem?
Our central bank doesn't control interest rate as the government want.
What do you mean as the government?
I told about that the president are not was against the high interest rate, but the central bank also do it, and
So the problems could be named central bank has full control of the rate, and this is the problem. All right.
I understand.
So it is unclear what you have written on the slide.
Yes.
Absolutely. And another point concerns the forecast of the Q rate you were talking about. Judging by your forecast, our Q rate should go up because your forecast is upward looking, but you make a conclusion that it is going to be it is going down. So you have your forecast, you have received it, and it is upward looking. So it means central bank should increase the interest rate. But you say in your presentation that it is going to be down. Can you comment?
Yes, of course. By me was used only mathematical methods in Excel, and when I do forecast of my opinion, I pay attention on what expect investors, banks from the central bank. And of course, it is a positive forecast if the interest rate will decrease. But also, mathematical methods show that it will increase.
Yeah, well, it should be defined by many other things, and some of them are literally not connected. So these are my general comments.
May I add to your comments? Okay. So actually, when we talk about monetary policy, first my comment was about general overview that you raised many different issues. But in order to analyze experience of other countries, I would probably start with analysis of model of Federal Reserve. It's actually based not only on Taylor rule. In fact, there are several models. The first model of Federal Reserve was published in 1996. It contained 300 equations and include many factors. Then for many years, there was no any publications about what actually Federal Reserve is doing. And 2 years ago, after there was a huge noise when Janet Yellen, the head of Federal Reserve, the chairman of Board of Governors of Federal Reserve, made huge trembling of markets by postponing announcement whether federal funds rate will be raised or not, and it caused huge discussion because the claims were that Federal Reserve should be stripped of a function of establishing interest rate, and this function should be given to robots who would do this without human involvement. But then after that, Chairman Janet Yellen had a meeting in December 2015. She spoke to Economic Council in Washington, D.C. and she responded to possibility of introducing robots, and she responded with a description of 5 models that Federal Reserve currently use. One of them is famous FRB-US, which was published in 1996. She presented brief overview of them. Next year, in 2016, there was published status of FRB-US model, which is more updated than previous one. But a recent publication of model is different. Instead of providing actually there was a software, there was database, there was model, there was all mathematical description of all equations, but now they canceled everything and replaced with a very short and small model based on Taylor rule. But it is a very known fact, as some researchers present, for example, Frederick Mishkin. He states that Taylor rule actually cannot be used as a model for decision making because this model describes after-fact past decisions, but it cannot, and that basically it works very well. But that's a simple thing that is not equal to actual monetary policy which is done by Federal Reserve. In this regard, my recommendation in your future study, first, you should break the question into different subjects. What you're actually going to study. Because you mentioned about institutional issues associated with monetary and general economic policy, which is great, but this issue should be also addressed, and actually there are no studies in this regard. But if you specifically want to study monetary policy, and you should start with these models, analyze first models of Federal Reserve, that a lot of literature, especially National Bureau of Economic Research and other institutions, they provide a lot of literature how actually Federal Reserve work. Then you could proceed to models who imitate work of Bank of England, which is completely different from Federal Reserve. Then work of the European Central Bank, which is also different because they have different task structures and different goals of monetary policy that each of them actually puts. Then, of course, the most interesting Japanese model, because Japan is the first country who, few days ago, introduced blockchain in their regulation, and they actually leaders and pioneers in that. Then, next stage is studies in so-called macroeconomic design, which is how markets could be regulated in blockchain environment without not only using banks, but without using central banks. And that's cutting-edge studies in this regard. That's why your desire to study it, and actually it's a very good presentation in sense how you possess instruments for regression analysis. You could apply it in Excel, but of course not only Excel. You could use MATLAB, you could use eView and other more advanced tools. Then you could proceed to comparison of all these models. Interesting enough, all these models based on the CGE mathematical tool. But they're still different. It's a huge work. And if you start this work, that would be, you could achieve great results. And that's your first step, of course. And I agree with my colleagues that there could be many improvements in your presentation, especially relation to your statistical analysis with the stated purpose, because they seem like independent studies that combined in one under one heading, but still you may either choose different topics or you may study one of these topics. All of these things have merits and demerits, and I see a huge perspective for your work, actually. Very huge perspective, and you should continue studies. Thank you.
Okay, hello. I hope our colleagues in Vietnam hear us. Well, I have two short questions, I would say, and then I would like to comment. So the first question is, what is the regression? What you regress? What is dependent variable? What are endogenous variable? And what are your conclusions about the results? You should be really very precise about that. So if you regress something, you should have equation, then results, and then comments about results. What conclusions do you do from these results? And the second question is, so what are particular recommendations for like Russian Central Bank? I mean, you should be really very precise. You should be. You say that you want to like recommend for Bank of Russia to do something that other central banks do. So you should be really very precise. What, why, and what will be results? Why is there any reason for that? You should explain that. So this is something that is completely. There is nothing about that in presentation. And like the last question, I would say like 3. What is your conclusions? So you should, if you're going to present this study, the first question will be, what are your conclusions? What is the result of your study? And then I will comment.
In regression analysis was mentioned investment, the share of investment in the GDP.
Is that dependent variable or
and it
is it exogenous? Is it on the left side or the right side? What's the regression what?
It depends on money in circulation according to regression.
So you invest share of investment on money in circulation, on monthly aggregate.
Yeah, yes.
Not on increase in monthly aggregate, but aggregate itself.
Yes.
Okay, so what are your conclusions about that?
And my conclusions is that the multiplier must be at 80 but it have 4.280 and show that investments really depends on money in circulation, and it must be mentioned as a main goal of central bank to control amount of investments with monetary aggregates.
Next one. Next question was about the what like particular I don't know things would you like to implement from other bank to Russian central bank? Because I haven't heard about like foreign investors as a part of I don't know monetary policy and Bank of England, nothing like that. So you should be very precise about what you want to take from other central banks policies. What about that?
Yes, I want to take from foreign monetary policy mainly the control of interest rate, the flexibility of interest rate, and also development of financial markets. But from Japan, I think we should take the feature of national economy, and I think that the Russian economy is very unique as Japan economy so much, and it needs a special approach. Yes.
But I would like to mention what I can say. So you cover really, as was already mentioned, you cover really very, very big, huge topics, and nothing in the presentation about that. Just zero. Because there's so many research made in the world about monetary policy, about exchange rate. Nothing was told about exchange rate policy. Nothing was told about inflation targeting. Nothing was told, but just some comments, ordinary comments, but they don't look like really. I can see any study there. For example, the regression. You regress something that is like investment share GDP, something that is stationary. You regress it on non-stationary monetary like M2, and M2 is just like nominal variable. So this makes no sense. Also, this just makes no sense. Everything like that. So I mean, if you're going to study this, you should also have a lot of references to different studies. You should have, if you're going to study this global super tough topic, you should have, I don't know, like maybe 100 references. It's not 100 references on papers, because so much was done on that topic, and you don't have anything. Maybe I don't know. Maybe it will be really too difficult for you. Maybe you should take some more easy, some simple topic, because this is, have you heard of something about DSG model? I guess no. Taylor rule. Have you heard about Taylor rule? Why not? Why not? Well, we can do that.
You cannot even apply to America.
You can do that. You can. No, I won't agree, because
It's done for students. It's not theoretical.
but this is first order. This is first order model.
Understand
Exactly.
relationship in American economy, and could be applied to any economy equally, because basically doesn't have no practical sense. But this model is put on the side of Federal Reserve, actually. But that's only to maybe to appease public, without revealing secrets. That's the purpose of it.
Well, I won't agree, because I would say that in fact what is Taylor rule is just the basic is derived from the model when you use central bank that wants to maximize like social welfare, and then you make then you solve this problem. Then you make linearization as the optimal policy of Taylor rule. So it's written in the Woodford book.
Yeah,
And I would say, I mean, if you were going to write about such tough topic, you should be aware of this thing.
Can I add this? Can I add to the previous discourse? Yes. So question was about the relationship between investment and money supply, monetary aggregates. The problem is that first, when we do any regression analysis, we assume that variables are functionally independent. If you make analysis of functionally dependent variables, it doesn't make any sense. The problem is there is an accelerator principle. Actually, it's accelerator coefficient. It shows how investment changes with the increase in GDP. And that's not statistical measure. This is functional measure. So first, the relationship GDP and investment, number one. Because investment actually is component of GDP. Then second relationship between money supply and GDP growth. That's also established functional relationship, not statistical relationship. That's why we have chain of two relations which are determined by functional analysis using formulas, but not statistical regression. And I completely agree with all previous speakers that in order to, first we need to single out every single problem. Each of them is worth of huge study. Each of them is worth of dissertation, actually, doctoral dissertation, each of them. But you need to choose one of them, and concentrate on this one. Then I completely agree that there should be a huge body of literature processed before you set the task. Then you set the task, then you determine which data would be relevant, then you determine mathematical construction that could be applied here, method, theory that is behind, and that would make a really great study that would be published in Web of Science, that would be dependent at your bachelor student or bachelor student. That's which year? Last year. Okay, so that's why you need to prepare your diploma paper, right? And probably you may make such a topic as a topic of diploma paper. That would be first thing. Then you go to master's program and develop and publish several articles. Then you could defend the dissertation. But for the first, that's a good start. Very good start. But yeah, but the first, actually, I'm not that critical of any work because every work deserves attention. But there are, of course, the more you do, the more questions are raised. And the first step would be determine what specifically you want to study. And of course, you need to study different types of monetary policy, compare, contrast. And have you chosen the topic for diploma paper? And what is this? Basically, this is the same. This is the same that you present, right?
But it also is very fitting on presentation. I show only conclusion. And the idea of my research is that it is wrong to separate economical policy, financial policy, and social policy also. It should help each other because the central bank shape trust of population and also it is important.
Trust and expectation. And expectation is a huge part of it. So yeah,
the presentation, but we have, due to our time limit, and plus our technical problem with Vietnamese side sound. Dear Vietnamese colleague, tell us please, how can we hear your presentation? Did you improve the position with sound of your side? Let's start your presentation, please. Start listening to your presentation. It's your turn. Now. Найдете? Давайте, хоть вы что-нибудь сделайте, если не получается. Если не получится, Леш, они уже ничего не важно. Если у них не получится, мы все имеем их презентацию. Мы просто зададим им вопросы письменные, на этом закончим. Ну, они сменили аудиторию. Что же мы должны теперь? Окей. Dear Vietnamese colleague, I ready to report we can't understand your position. We need your reply. Either write us something or give us any sign that you understand my words, that you can hear me. Thank you very much. So we are waiting for your presentation, please. Леш, вы можете вместо них включить презентацию? Извините, дорогие коллеги, сегодня, видимо, не очень хороший день. Они взяли ушли в другую аудиторию. Dear Vietnamese colleague, increase your sound, please. Just change the position of your microphone. Так, ну загружается. Okay, so, Леш, вы можете презентацию сами включить? Ну, я вижу, что они ее включают. У нас 15 минут осталось для обсуждения. Ну да, включите как-нибудь.
Đây, của mình đây đúng không? Ok, chị. Đấy, rồi, nói đi, thử nói đi xem.
Excuse me, can start my presentation.
Chị nói luôn. Chị ơi, nói luôn đi. Ra mình đi chỉnh đi ạ. Đây là chỉnh slide. Chỉnh slide không?
Thôi
cứ nói đi. Thôi cứ nói đi. Rồi, thì...
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Today I'm glad to give you my presentation on monetary policy and the performance of Vietnam's commercial banks. This work is conducted by the Vice Dean of Banking Academy of Vietnam, Ms. Thanh Nhan Nguyen. They are the one me, the Open Banking Academy. This is the content of my presentation. Introduction, literature review, methodology, findings, and final conclusions. So, first of all, I'll start with the introduction. As you may know, monetary policy involves the use of monetary instruments, including reserve requirement, discourage, open market operations, and so on, to regulate or control the volume, the cost, the availability, and the direction of money and credit in an economy to achieve some macroeconomic objectives. For example, price stability, full employment, and sustainable economic growth. These instruments do not affect economic activities directly, but hold their effects on available resources in the banking sector. For example, when the economy experiences inflationary pressure, the central bank can use tightening monetary policy to stabilize the price level. This may be done by increasing the required reserve ratio (SR rate), which will reduce the credit amount available to commercial banks for the purpose of credit facility, making the cost of borrowing increases. Loans will become expensive and people will borrow less. As a result, aggregate spending will drop, and so will investments. Moreover, due to higher interest rates, banks' deposits become more attractive as they offer better returns on savings. As a result, people tend to save more and spend less. The literature suggests that monetary policy directly affects their bank performance. For example, in order to make profit, commercial banks invest customers' deposits in various short-term and long-term investments. However, the core of such deposits is used for loans. Therefore, the more loans and advances they can extend to borrowers, the more profits they can make. When the central bank embarks on tightening monetary policy, it reduces the available resources with the commercial banks. This consequently reduces their ability to make profits. Looking at the Vietnamese economy, we have experienced unstable macro in the last 10 years, which has led to changes in monetary policy. These changes have forced most of the commercial banks to shift the effect to their customers, causing an impact on the bank's performance. Therefore, this paper is designed to examine the effect of monetary policy movements on the performance of Vietnamese banking system. Next slide. The next section of our paper provides a brief review of study examining the different effects of monetary policy on banks' performance in various countries all over the world. In order to make it clearer, we will look at two groups, advanced and developing economies. With advanced economies, the link between monetary policy and bank profitability is under research. Many papers have analyzed the link between bank profitability and business condition, but only few of them have produced results on the link between interest rate structure and bank profitability. Therefore, the literature only suggested a somewhat relationship between banks' profits and monetary policy. For example, the positive relationship between banks' profits and macroeconomic variable as real interest rate or unconventional monetary policy in the US, EU and UK have tended to increase banks' medium-term risk and reduce their profit. So how about developing economies? By using different variables representing monetary policy and bank performance, for example, ROA, ROE, lending rates, cash reserve ratio. Most of research suggested that monetary instruments have a significant influence on bank performance, except for the last research. You can also find more details about this literature reviewing our paper. And to summarize, it suggested that there is a link between monetary policy and bank performance. However, it really depends on each country with different monetary policy and different macroeconomic environment. So how about Vietnam? Is there any link between monetary policy and commercial banks' performance? This is also our research question. This is the variable description. The dependent variable representing the bank's performance is bank's profit. The independent variables used as the proxy for the Central Bank of Vietnam's monetary policy are monetary base, required reserve ratio, and discount rate. These variables are not only to provide full analysis of the effect of Vietnam's banking performance, but also help to find the most effective monetary policy instrument affecting the performance of banking system. Besides monetary policy factors, the remaining determinants of banks' performance can be divided in internal and external factors. In this paper, we use credit growth, capital adequacy ratio, loan-to-deposit ratio, and liquidity ratio as the proxy for internal factors of the performance of commercial banks. External factors are economic growth, inflation, and financial market growth with the index. Next slide, please. Well, the data set is collected from 20 commercial banks doing business in Vietnam in the period from 2007 to 2014, with a total of 107 observations. The numerical data on internal variables is retrieved directly from banks' annual financial statement. Other data on macroeconomic variable is from the official sources, including the State Bank of Vietnam, that is the Central Bank of Vietnam, General Statistic Office, and Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange. Next slide, please. This is the descriptive statistic of input variables. And next, the correlations among these variables. Next slide, please. This is the correlation among independent variables. Next, please. This is the model, the formula in our model. And in order to make it easy to understand and also to save time, I want to skip this part and move to finding. Next slide, please. Okay, this is our finding. First of all, the regression result indicates that monetary policy has a significant impact on banking products, particularly monetary base MB. Among the three instruments representing the State Bank of Vietnam's monetary policy, monetary base has a significant positive impact on banks' profits. In fact, besides required reserve ratio, which has more direct effects on bank credit, monetary base and discount rate are the two main indirect monetary policy instruments under control of the State Bank of Vietnam. Furthermore, monetary base has been chosen to be the main target in conducting monetary policy of the State Bank of Vietnam. Therefore, monetary base is manipulated more frequently to control the performance and stability of the whole banking system in Vietnam. As a result, among those chosen variables representing the Central Bank of Vietnam's monetary policy, monetary base has a significant positive impact on banking profit. Secondly, among internal factors, credit growth, loan-to-deposit ratio, and liquidity ratio are the main factors of Vietnamese banking system's profitability. Because the main business of Vietnam's commercial banks is still giving loans to customers, credit is definitely the major part of the bank's assets, and credit growth is the main source of the banking profit. Moreover, liquidity is also one of the important factors driving the profits of Vietnam's commercial banks. In fact, liquidity not only helps banks deal with the variety of risk, but also show the reputation and reliance of banks in the case of Vietnam. In addition, among two liquidity indicators, the loan-to-deposit ratio and liquidity ratio, the latter is proved to have more significant effect on banking profit. It can be referred that SBB's policy on banking performance should have more concern on banks' liquidity. Thirdly, economic and financial market growth affect significantly the banking performance. Particularly, Vietnam's economic growth has a positive influence on banks' profits. A negative effect of VN index on banks' profits has been also found through the panel model. Actually, there are two basic mechanisms by which funds flow through the financial system. The first one, funds can flow directly through financial market, and second, funds can flow indirectly through financial intermediaries, for example, banks. The growth of financial market encourages firms to mobilize capital through direct channel, which is security exchange market, rather than borrowing from banks. Therefore, the banking profit might be negatively affected. Slide, please. Based on these findings, we provide some policy implications. Firstly, monetary base should be one of the variables in the center of being concerned in the SBB's policy regarding to the banking performance and stability. Secondly, SBB should pay more attention on banks' liquidity, since liquidity ratio has been proved to be significant in driving the banking performance. Last but not least, monetary movement, which targets economic growth, can push up the profit of Vietnamese banking system, and that's also. Well, this is all my presentation. Thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, please send it to us, and we'll try to answer. Thank you.
Stop ở đây nè. Món nào nha? Stop ở đây.
Hello?
Không chuyển sang cái chat đi. Đây, đang hỏi rồi, cầm mic rồi. Nói chưa nhỉ? Có nghe không? Không tốt lắm.
Do I have connection?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I think I can hear myself. I mean, in your audio, in your room. Okay, I have a question. What do you think about the endogeneity problem in your research? Because here you have discount rate as a dependent variable, and you might think that in fact discount rate is not completely exogenous. You cannot treat it as completely exogenous with respect to banking profit. And I guess what you're doing, you don't do vector after regression. Maybe it's something you can try to do that, because this is the way how you can possibly deal with this endogeneity. So what do you think about that? And maybe you should run some instrument variable regression, I don't know, something like that. Maybe some sophisticated GMM. Or, yeah, thanks.
Hỏi lại và nó thay.
Global internet computing developed from here.
Dear colleague, did you comprehend our question? Should we repeat it? Should we repeat it? Should we write it down in our SMS sector?
Không bảo gì cái chạy cái gì thấy cái biến nha. Online today's week. Cái này là mình đánh này chị. Chứ ông ra ông gõ đấy. Đấy, ông tìm chỗ mà này. Chứ cần ra. Trời ơi. Rồi chị ngủ quá, chị ngủ lúc chị sắp ngủ gật rồi này. Ngủ gật đến đây. Này mấy giờ rồi cho ta đi về. Chương trình thiết kế à?
Biết rồi mô hình của mình bị đấy là đây là mình cũng bàn mô hình thì thôi.
Anh gõ một tay này. How chưa biết. Ôi giời ôi, chê tay chị ơi, nói chứ không biết gì. BIS.
Nè, GIS cái gì? GIS là gì? Cannot be treated. GIS là biến gì nhỉ?
Nói lại. Back đi.
Back này.
Mà nó biết cái...
Discovered.
Đây.
Discovered. Yeah. So you see it's a.
Gõ hay là cứ nói đi, cứ nói xem mình có nghe thấy không?
Dear college, can you hear me?
Em giải thích cái discovered là gì? Mà là đây này. Can we treat it as a completely exogenous? Exogenous là biến đổi sinh à?
Đúng rồi. Indo là exo là ngoại sinh.
Ngoại sinh.
Còn đây mới nội sinh.
Sao mà completely exogenous nhỉ? This is central bank. Trả lời gì cả?
Nó gọi gì nào? Cái này.
Okay, so Tatiana Viktorovna, do you have any question to our Vietnamese colleague?
So one more question is
Phải nội sinh, không phải ngoại sinh.
Tatiana Viktorovna.
yes, can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Your turn to ask question.
Yes. Hello, can you hear me?
Honestly, they can hear. Or as an option, you can type your question to them.
Okay, I will.
Не надо. Да, закрывайте. Я думаю, что при таком... Да нет, давайте подключим. Нет, Татьяна Викторовна всякая. Они, я боюсь, что лучше печатают. Это я вижу при таком уровне связи. Причем вчерашние все хорошо. Они взяли и ушли в другую аудиторию. Ну, так как-то надо прекратить. Ну да, я скажу. Да. Я написала, посмотрите. Вам, наверное, это надо. Да. Паспорт. Спасибо. Вверх, Леша. Экран вверх. Леша, экран вверх. Vietnamese colleague. Meanwhile, Tatiana Belyanchikova type her question to you. I should announce. Already done. Okay, so Tatiana Belyanchikova ask you a question. Can you answer orally, or should we wait for your written answer? Okay, so do you have, dear Vietnamese colleague, can you answer our second question, please? So, dear participant, unfortunately, we have time limit, and due to time restriction and due to several technical problems at the very beginning of our webinar, we have to postpone the listening of your third presentation, I mean second Vietnamese presentation. And let me greet you once more And thank you for the interesting presentation and for the active participation in our webinar. Let me greet our experts present in our audience and remote one, our Tatiana Belyanchikova, Professor of Global Economy and Global Finance Department. Let me greet and thanks our Vietnamese participant and hope that our next webinar in our next autumn semester will be, in our next autumn term, will be more successful than this present one, and hope that nevertheless it was useful, fruitful, and you will actively participate in our future seminars. Thank you for your work.
Thank you very much.
Bye.